respectfully, Representative Smith, the fact that there are, in fact, some errors that happen in the system. Every system has errors, and it doesn't mean that there are not safeguards in place. There are safeguards, and you as a clerk, having done many registrations previously, understand that there's a process that you go through. And you can ask NASA. There's no process that doesn't have some error inherent in the system.
Okay, thank you. And you're very right. When I was a clerk, there were lots of errors in the system. That's largely why I am here. I took off a dead voter in my township. And guess what? That dead voter was put back on. Not by me. That was done by the Secretary of State's office.
I'm going to need a minute because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely insane. Not like the media says it's insane. I mean actually insane. The question on the table is simple. Could Democrats be relying on dead people to vote for them? I think most of us know the question. Most of us also know the answer. Now, the press will clutch their pearls. They will say that it's a conspiracy theory. It's us maggots who are always trying to say these things. They'll always say that until the paperwork shows up, then they change the subject. So let us stay on subject. Michigan, a swing state, a state that decides presidential elections, a state run for years by the Democrats, who treat election rules like a suggestion box. A Michigan state representative named Rachel Schmidt went on the record, not on a podcast, not in a basement somewhere, at a committee hearing, under the lights, under cameras. She used to be a clerk. That really matters in this story.
When I was a clerk at Martin Township, there was a family member who at one point was registered at my in-laws' home, and that family member had died nearly 20 years prior. They were put on the rolls at 2020. They were mailed voter application ballots without the authorization to do that. That's the local clerk's job. So I went in there, removed her from the voting rolls because I know firsthand this family member is dead in D.C.
Clerks do the real work. She said, and I quote, "I took off a dead voter in my township." Great job. And then guess what? That dead voter somehow magically reappeared on the voter rolls. It got put back, not by her, but by the Secretary of State's office in Michigan. Now pause right there and think about this. You remove dead names from the system, and the Secretary of State, who's in charge of the elections, puts the dead names back. That's not a typo. That's not a glitch. It's not a problem in the matrix. That is a process problem with a pulse. Somebody who can be identified as causing the problem. Except the voter doesn't have one. The voter doesn't have a pulse. So she kept going.
Just this past election cycle, lo and behold, that person was put back on the voter rolls and has a card of the early voting location polling that I actually have and can produce.
There was a family member registered at her in-laws' home. That family member has been dead for nearly 20 years. 20 years. Then the name shows up on the voter rolls. They mail the voter application ballots without any authorization because they can't get one because she's been dead for 20 years. That's the whole ball game. They do not need a ghost to walk into a precinct. They need a mailbox. They need a name that's marked active, even though it's already been declared inactive after it's already been deemed dead. They just need a name. They need a ballot that leaves the building, and in Michigan, active means the mail truck is coming to its house. Whose house? I have no idea. Now let us look at the numbers. Not my numbers. Numbers from an investigation of Michigan's voter file. You're going to be blown away here. Tens of thousands of dead registrants. Tens of thousands. 25,975 potentially dead names. 95% of whom were marked active by the state's Secretary of State, who runs the elections. Let that sink in. 95% of the dead people weren't flagged, weren't archived, they were marked active. 23,663 dead, 5 years or more. 17,479 people that have been dead at least 10 years. 3,956 people who have been dead at least 20 years. And at least 2 people who were born before 1921. All of them are active on the voter rolls. Over 100 years old. This woman was 100 plus years old, and she's still on the active list. If your uncle has been in the ground since the Bush years, he should not be getting election mail from the state of Michigan, period. But now the Democrats say, relax, nobody's voting from the cemetery. Really? Then why fight so hard to keep the names on the list? Why put a removed name back on the file? Why mail an application to a house where the voter has been dead for 2 decades? Why are all these things happening? Why mark a corpse as active? Because an active file is a useful file. That's the point. They never want to debate this at all. They never want to even admit that there are dead people on the rolls. This is not about one sad mistake somewhere. This is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy makes mistakes, most of the time intentionally. But a mistake that you refuse to fix stops being a mistake. It becomes a feature, a benefit. And features have beneficiaries that follow the incentive. Who benefits from bloated voter rolls? Who benefits from mass mail-in ballots? Who benefits when nobody has to show, forget ID, they don't even have to show a pulse. They don't have to show that they're breathing. They don't have to show any citizenship paper. It's not the party that wins on election day with living Americans standing in line. It's the party that needs extra paper ballots in the pipeline. Democrats spent years selling mail-in voting as a compassion. Makes it easier. Grandma shouldn't have to stand in the rain. Fine. Nobody's against grandma. Nobody's against the disabled. We're against grandma's ballot showing up after grandma's gone, after grandma's been in the dirt for 20 years. That's not compassion. That is wide open fraud. It is a window for fraud, and it's a window that's attracting people who like those open windows. Now watch the media trick. They will say, show us the convictions, show us any evidence. The evidence is in the fact that there's no body in the booth. The body is in the ground. Man, it's as if fraud only counts after a press conference. Don't leave the safe unlocked and then demand a video of the burglar. You lock the safe, you lock your front doors, you lock your car because you want to make sure it's safe. They keep telling us prove somebody has stolen the car before they're willing to lock the doors. Voter ID is the lock. Citizenship checks are the lock. Dead name removal, the same week the obituary runs, is the lock. Democrats call all of that suppression. I'm not sure how someone who's been dead for 20 years can be suppressed. The deceased are dead. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. I gotta say it unequivocally. The dead man can't vote. The dead man can't be suppressed. A dead man is protected from having his name used, or should be. If the left truly believed their own BS, they would help clean the file. They would make sure that people weren't being abused after they've passed on. Scrub the dead, keep the living, fix the issue, and make sure our elections are secure. That shouldn't be so difficult. But instead, they stall, they smear, and in this clerk, they call her a threat to democracy for wanting a live list of live voters. In Michigan, the Secretary of State is Jocelyn Benson, a Democrat. She was told about these dead names. She did nothing. The watchdogs sent the data. They sent obituaries to prove the people were dead. They even sent pictures of gravestones, actual gravestones. And the machine said, more or less, we're doing a reasonable job. Reasonable. 25,000 dead names is reasonable? A relative dead 20 years getting mail is reasonable?
Can you assure Michiganders that there are no longer any non-citizen voters on the voter roll?
We've actually done a lot, frankly, more than any other state to ensure we're driving down or increasing the security of our voter rolls. And you can go to our website and see everything we've done to ensure the accuracy of our lists. And we've talked at length about that as well.
So are there any other non-citizen voters on the voter roll?
Well, it's certainly a priority of us to make sure we're consistently working to ensure the accuracy of our rolls. And I'm glad we've been recognized as one of the top states in the country for doing that.
A clerk yanks the name and it gets put back in intentionally. How is that reasonable? If your bank puts your dead mother back on the joint account, you wouldn't call it reasonable. You would call it fraud. You would call a lawyer. You'd have to get that taken care of. Elections deserve the same standard as a checking account. We shouldn't be subjected to having dead people and having their identities used to vote. Michigan is not a unique snowflake. This pattern keeps showing up wherever you look hard. The blue states that run these rolls through federal death data and find mountains of dead registrants, hundreds of thousands in the aggregate.
In 2028, which are just around the corner, and presidential cycle is coming up. And this really underscores why governors and state officials like attorneys general and secretaries of state are so critical right now in this moment of federal overreach, where the only guardrails left are our state leaders, and particularly governors who will say no when, as I have done as Secretary of State, when federal officials demand access to private data of citizens and other types of things that really impede upon the safety and the privacy of all of our residents. So in our case, with the far-reaching demands of voter information, private information on voting that the federal government has no authority to access to, but they're putting significant pressure on state officials to turn over.
North Carolina found tens of thousands. California families say ballots keep arriving after they filed the death certificate. DOJ officials have said the states that even cooperated still have hundreds of thousands of dead records sitting right there. And the states that won't cooperate, we have no idea. Just trust us. We're from the government. We're here to help. They won't verify anything. And they hate the very nature of us even asking them to verify. They will sue if you ask them to verify. This is a dirty trick, and it's a dirty trick on the American people. We shouldn't have to be subjected to these potentially stolen elections. All we've got to do is begin getting the newcomers off the rolls and cleaning up the dead people. It's pretty simple. No ID. If they don't have an ID and they don't have a pulse, they shouldn't have a ballot.
Why is the federal government looking for ballots from states?
Well, I think it's designed to, one, create confusion about the validity of elections, to potentially say that they've discovered something. We know, again, that having paper ballots and post-election audits help us reinforce the security of our elections and the validity of the results. But simply making a lot of these false accusations creates doubt designed to make us question our power as citizens to hold elected officials accountable, designed to help us, to make us question the efficacy of participating at all.
This isn't a Hollywood conspiracy. It's not a MAGA conspiracy. It's actually happening. It's sloppy. It's intentional. And I think it has to end. It's not just Republicans that should have a problem. Everybody should have a problem that dead people are intentionally being put back on the voter rolls. Why is it? Why aren't we asking questions? Why isn't the media banging down the doors of the Secretary of State's office? This country was founded on one person with one vote.
As well, we're doing everything we can to ensure that non-citizens are not able to vote and that only U.S. citizens vote in our election. And it's working. There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. If they were.
Mr. LaRose, I'm going to let you follow up on the statement from Ms. Benson.
We found 135 this year that had voted. We found another 400 that were registered but hadn't yet voted. And this idea that it's already illegal. It's illegal to hijack airplanes, but we don't get rid of the TSA.
So the question that everybody should be asking, are the Democrats relying on these dead names to try and compete in an election? Even if they lose, are they doing this just so they can garner more votes? I think we all know the answer to that. When a party expands mail voting and fights citizenship proof and blocks list maintenance and puts dead names intentionally back on the file, they're building a system that does not require the voter to even be alive, which means it's fraud. Let me know what you think in the comments.